of course, um, with our, let's say, with the children or your families, of course, we have certain stronger karmic connections to be connected in that way. Um, so definitely there would be emotionally more involved. Um, mm, um, so if we can learn to kind of what do you call it, to develop the biological or the emotional love and compassions and bring it to further through meditation and practice and training. And so when we are able to bring that further through training, then you are able to develop a lot of the inner strength that I described before, the inner strength and courage and competence. So with that kind of inner strength, courage and competence, then whether it's your own children, your families, friends, or anyone's, you will not be so, while you feel their pain and suffering, while you will not be so overwhelmed and overpowered by them. And I think that is so to build up that inner strength and courage, And I think that is the key of dealing with that kind of things. Uh, and also to understand, the pain, that suffering that we see in our children or in our friends, and when we see that, to remind that they are the not only one who is going through that kind of pain and suffering. There are so many millions of other people who are going through similar pain and suffering, and some of them much more worse. And I think again, when you see, then I think again, when you feel that it is only happening to yourself, your children, your family, sometimes it might feel a little bit overwhelming, too big. But when you see that it is not only that, then I think it helps you to be a little bit more less burden in that way, and to be able to see, there are so many others who are going through similar wars and who are able to deal with that, and so that gives you some kind of confidence that it's possible for you, for someone to also overcome that too. And so, so those can be certain practice, way of thinking that can be helpful, and also trying to develop, instead of attachment, more sense of true love, compassion, not on the basis that because he or she is my children, because he or she is my parent, because he or she is my friend, but on the basis on that they are just sentient beings who want to be happy and do not want suffering. So if we can build up some kind of a love and compassion on the basis of that, then that becomes foundation of true love and compassion and not attachment. And so then when it becomes more true compassion and less attachment, then I think we experience less pain, and we go through less pain. That, yeah. Yes, please.
I just have a question about when you mentioned that there are three things, anger, hatred, and ignorance, which obviously lead to attachment. I understand anger and hatred, but what do you mean by ignorance? Like ignorance towards what?
Yeah. As I was using the word fundamental ignorance, and so because there can be so many ignorance, billions of ignorance in our mind. Um,
And at times they say ignorance is bliss, so I think
So here when we say that ignorance, at the very root of that, we are talking about particular ignorance, what we call fundamental ignorance. And as I mentioned, that ignorance is mistakenly grasping and holding the self, like yourself, when we have sense of feeling me, I, or self, that to be as some sense of solid, some sense of concrete I, inherent true I. And so that is the ignorance. And same with others. When you see the others, inherent, for example, let's maybe it might be helpful, maybe if we relate with attachment, and let's say with anger. When you see certain objects, okay, attractive, beautiful, nice, good qualities, whatever that you see that attracts you and attach to that. When you see that there is a appearance of that object appearing as a attractive, beautiful, goodness from its own side objectively. And not only that, then so that is like inherently, independently existing by its own side objectively. And then we kind of, not only it appeared, then our mind actually follow that appearance and grasps as it is existing that way. And so when you feel that goodness, beautiness is coming from that objective, from its own side, then there's more attachment and needs of that object, wanting of that object. So that is how that appearance and that kind of grasping lead to stronger attachment and wanting of that. Same thing when you have aversion or anger or aversion to certain objects. We have aversion because we see bad in that qualities, unattractive, unpleasantness, badness, evilness, whatever quality that we see in. So again, there is appearance of that quality that we have aversion, existing from that objective side, from its own side. Inherently from objective side. And there's not only appearance, then our mind also follow that and then grasp that same way. That is the real, that's the reality, that's the truth. And then when you see that, then we have a stronger aversion towards that object. But here it is saying in Buddhism, so that is what they call ignorance, that grasping the way it appeared, that believing that is the reality, and that is the truth. But if you really analyze this, the goodness, the badness, the attractiveness, unattractiveness, is more coming from subjective than objective. You know, whatever beautiness, goodness that you are attached to, the object that it appeared to you, that is coming from objectively, totally from objectively, as absolutely from objectively, from that. Then one, whoever encounter that object, it has to be same, appear same to everyone. But that is not the case. One object that could appear good to me, For someone it might appear bad, for someone it might appear so-so, someone which appear beautiful, for someone it might appear very ugly, for someone so-so. So that beautiness or goodness is more coming from your subjective mind than objective. The same with when you see badness or ugliness or unattractiveness, again it's coming from more our subjective mind than the objective itself. But the problem is when we see it, it's appearance from objective, and then immediately our mind apprehend that way and believe that is the truth, that's the reality. And that is the ignorance that we are talking about. And so, so if we don't have that ignorance, even though if we don't believe, if our mind doesn't mistakenly grasp and apprehend just by the appearance, then we wouldn't be deceived the way it has been deceived at the moment, a lot of time. And so that is the ignorance of believing the appearance and apprehending that appearance as to be reality and true, when it is not that. So yeah, so that is a fundamental ignorance that word. Yes.
Yes, and also beautiful that we talked about 3 levels of appearance and apprehension. In my practice, what I've seen is you come to a point where object might not inherently exist. Then you're on the second level. Basically, you're forming desire or hatred based on inherent appearance, which at times it does. But then I also found that even on a surface level, you avoid, with the mindfulness, the desire and hatred. You do have subtle desires and subtle hatred. And then me, mine, belongings. How, in my practice, how should I approach that subtle part of me?
Well, I think in the teachings, one of the things that they say why we need to cultivate insight and why mindfulness or karma abiding shamatha itself is not enough. Even though it is important and you need that tools, but just by itself is not enough. And that is what they say with the mindfulness, karma abiding shamatha. It says you can stop those desires, those different negative emotions from arising when you are in that state. All of those does not really arises through the power of your concentration and mindfulness. So all these thoughts, emotion dissolve. But it doesn't mean it is gone there. It's still there. So it is, and so to get rid of them fully, then you have to use the wisdom, analysis, and to recognize, because that subtle desire comes because there is still the ignorance of that subtle way of apprehending inherently existence. And so until we overcome that, then definitely there will be some certain level of desire or attachment or anger or whatever, those negative emotions. And so that means to not to have any of that, then we have to overcome that ignorance, the fundamental ignorance, and that can be only overcome by the wisdom. To give you one example, okay, maybe just before I enter my room, maybe I thought, oh, I saw a snake entering in my room, okay, and I believe that is the case, okay. It might be just hallucinating. Okay, I saw something there like a snake. I thought I really saw a snake, and I believe that is the root reality. And so there is a fear when I go inside. Okay? And so the fear will be there. And there are many different ways of dealing with that fear. Okay? One way of dealing with that fear is I don't allow that fear to arise. So I can just meditate, focus on my breath, or my mind, nature of my mind, whatever object that might be. So when I will to kind of concentrate and mindfully watch and breathe, then all other positive, negative emotion, all other thoughts, emotion dissolve. Okay? So the fear dissolve. So no more fear. Okay? Because that fear is one of the emotion, one of the feeling, thought. So when all the thoughts, when all the feeling, when all this dissolve, that fear also dissolve. So you can remain without being fear. But then when you come out of that meditation sessions, then when you engage again, it reminds you of that. Again, the fear arises. So that is not a permanent solutions. Okay? Even though through that practice you can overcome the fear to a certain period and certain time, but again, with certain cause and condition arises that trigger you to remind you of that what you saw, and because you still believe that was the true, again the fear arises. And so for the fear to go permanently, to overcome that permanently, then you should go in the house and analyze, check wherever it should be, and when you find it, every corner of your room, find out, and then you don't find snake there, then you begin to say, oh, it was just hallucination. You know, you analyze this, you check every corner of that, and you can't find. There is no snake. If there is the snake, then you would be able to find in some corner when you have checked every corner of your room. And when you are 100% sure that it is not there, and it is just a appearance, hallucinations, then your fear is able to go permanently. Then you don't have fear of that. And it's the same. So the mindfulness is the shamatha mindfulness is the way we deal the fear in certain level, but it does not clear permanently. And so the wisdom analyzing is really like the checking that what is the real reality, what's the real thing that is happening. And when you are 100% convinced with that kind of analysis, the appearance and the way things are very different. That is, even though things appear to me in that way, but that is not how things really exist. When you are totally convinced after that kind of analysis, then you don't believe on the basis of the appearance. At the moment, we believe on the basis of the appearance and see that is the reality, and act on that. And so that is why it is said the insight, the wisdom is needed to overcome permanently all those delusions. But again, also, I just want to remind, even though sometimes it might seem a little bit discouraging, by having the realization of emptiness, just by having realizing emptiness immediately, it doesn't mean that all the delusion will go on immediately. You have just started the progress of have some confirmation with that delusion, ignorance, and there's a long way to go through that. So just by having even true realization of emptiness, that doesn't mean all your delusion will be gone, even the gross level. Okay, so that is, but definitely, even we might have even after having the realizations of the emptiness with the wisdom, the delusion will be not as intense growth as before, and they will not remain strong as before and long as before. And also there is, even though there are delusion arise at time to time, but not frequent as before. And we have already making some progress, but still there will be more subtle level of delusions. And so then from that realization of emptiness, then at the very beginning, as I mentioned, in the path of, when we talk about five path, in the path of accumulation and preparation, the first two path, our realization of emptiness is true realization and experiential understanding, not just intellectual understanding. But still, it is still with the conceptions. And so at the very beginning, part of the accumulation, there is much more stronger conception, much more dualistic view. And within that, there are three labels, and with each label, your strong conception become more subtle, less dualistic, less conception. And then in the path of preparation, there are four levels, and with each level, you make more progress. Still, there is a dualistic view. Still, there is a conception, but less conception, less dualistic. And then when you reach the third path, the path of seeing, then you have the direct realization of emptiness. And that is when, without any dualistic view, you are able to have the direct understanding of emptiness without any conception, without any dualistic view. Even at that moment, you have not overcome all the delusions. So your antidotes, your method have becoming stronger and stronger, and so it is a long journey. Okay. So we can't expect not to have any kind of arising or any even subtle delusions after we have made some progress in our practice meditations. And also that doesn't mean that we have not made any progress. Even though delusions in there, if it's not as intense as before, that is a progress. Okay, before it's much more intense, now it is less intense. I get like you get angry, but it's not as intense as before. That is progress. Or before, the anger remained for a long time, long duration, and now you are able to let it go more quickly. You don't hold it. You don't hold it for a long time as before you. That is progress. The anger is still there, but it is a progress. So there are so many progress. That is how we have to see in our journey. The progress in that way. If we, so, okay. So then, this morning we talked about the benefit of the bodhicitta mind, the awakening mind bodhicitta, and so now we talk a little bit about the bodhicitta mind itself. In many of the teachings, they explain two particular methods of meditations to cultivate the bodhicitta mind. And one method, what we call it as a 7 point of cause and effect. So there is one which 7 point of cause and effect. There is one method, meditation. You follow by that, then one can cultivate bodhicitta. Another method is there is another method which is known as equalizing and exchanging self with others, and that is another method that we use in our practice meditations to cultivate bodhicitta mind. And someone can use either of those methods. And by using either of those methods, one can cultivate loving bodhicitta mind. With the 7 point of cause and effect, I don't think I will go so details because then that will take the whole sessions, and we want not. So, but I will just kind of describe, just point the points, and so then you can study more further in the futures. Um, of course, there are teachings here, and then you can read, you can listen. So, recognizing all sentient beings have been our most kind, loving, caring mother. That is the first point. Second is to remember the kindness of the mother, that most loving, kind, caring mother. And third is the repaying the kindness, cultivating the wish to repay the kindness. And the fourth is cultivating loving kindness. And the fourth and the fifth is cultivating compassion. And the sixth is the sometimes we call it is a different translation. In Tibetan it's laksam. Sometimes it is translated as special attitude. Sometimes it is translated as universal responsibility. And so that is with a compassion, with the loving kindness and compassion, you make a strong, not only wish, but you make a strong, firm commitment to lead all sentient beings to happiness and free them from suffering and cause of suffering. And then in this special attitude, then your commitment become even more stronger. You make even more stronger commitment, and the stronger commitment not only to liberate all sentient beings, free them from suffering and cause of suffering, and lead them to happiness, but to do that by yourself alone. Okay? So that is much more stronger commitment. Making a commitment to free sentient beings from suffering is one commitment. Then to do that by myself alone is a much more higher commitment. Do you get it? So it means in the first commitment, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to by yourself alone. Yeah? Or while you want to free them from suffering and cause of suffering. But then in this special attitude, then you make that much more stronger commitment that you are going to do by yourself alone. Even there is no one else to help you to do that you are going to by yourself alone. So that is a much more stronger commitment. So these 6 points are cause. That is why it calls 7 points of cause and effect. Cause, and the 7 is the result, the bodhicitta mind. And so then when you make that kind of strong commitment that you are going to free sentient beings from suffering and cause of suffering and lead them to happiness and cause of happiness by yourself alone, and when you actually engage to help them to do that, then you find you are very much with your present situation or with your present state of being, you are very much limited how much you can help and benefit others. With our limited loving kindness, compassion, with our limited wisdom, with our limited skillful means, even though you have the good intention, the right intention, motivation, but still to make it reality, we find ourselves being limited because we don't have the right wisdom to see what is most beneficial for them. Even you have the wish to help them, you don't know what is the most best way to help them. And even you find this is the best way to help them, still sometimes the means that we choose, the skill means that we choose to do that, sometimes we can't find the right skillful means, and instead of being helpful, sometimes it turns out it hurt them. Not because of the wrong intentions, but because of not having the right skillful means. And so then we find as unenlightened beings, as an unenlightened being, then you find very limited in that. And so when you do that, then when you analyze and investigate and see, and then you begin to see, if only you could become fully enlightened, if you are enlightened, then you will not be constrained by all these limitations. When you become enlightened, then not only you have infinite love, compassion, you have infinite wisdom, and you have the ability to see individual predispositions, their level of mind, their level of karma, and so according to that, then you can lead them and guide them, and in the most skillful means. And so when you see that, then we have naturally, spontaneously, wish to achieve that fully enlightened state as soon as possible, driven by that great love and compassion. And that mind, the wish to achieve fully enlightened state, induced by great love and compassion, that is what we call bodhisattva mind. And that is the result. So that is the... And so when you have, not only you have that wish to achieve fully enlightened state, and induced by great love and compassion, but when you are able to have that spontaneously, effortlessly, day and night, then that is when you have cultivated the bodhisattva mind, and in that moment, then you become bodhisattva. Whoever you are, you become bodhisattva. Male, female, educated, uneducated, rich, poor, doesn't matter. The moment you have that mind, effortlessly, spontaneously, day and night, then that is the then that moment you become bodhisattva, and you become the object of great respect, homage of all sentient beings. So, in terms of the that point, then I think I'm going to talk a little bit more on the other point, equalizing, exchanging self with others, that part. And within that, there are 5 points. You can see in a lot of those practices there are numbers, and it is a way to help us to keep in our memory, When there's numbers, it is much more easier to retain those points. So that is why you see a lot of time, a lot of numbers. Even though we can explain same subject without the numbers, 5 points like that. And I think that helps when you have that kind of numbers, then easy to retain, remember. So in the first point is equalizing self with others. And what it means is that we meditate, we reflect, we contemplate, and understand that just as we want to be happy all the time and do not want suffering even for a moment, not only we want that, each and every sentient beings equally, like ourselves, want to be happy all the time and do not wish suffering even for a second. So contemplating, reflecting, contemplating, meditating on this point, so that we begin to feel we are not different from them in that point. We are all equal in that perspective. All of our life, whatever we do differently, we might have different views, we might have different ideas, we might have different spiritual path, religions, we might have different political view, and then external outlooks, everything's. Despite all those differences, fundamentally, on fundamental level, we all are same, wanting to be happy, not wishing a suffering. And in order to fulfill that, that is why we all have different. We all are trying our own way to fulfill that. With different spiritual views, religious views, different political views, different ideas and all these things. Why? Everyone's trying to fulfill that wishes. And believe that by following this, and by doing that, that we can be more happy and less suffering. So that is the point. A lot of time we focus so much on the differences, which is on surface. We don't really focus on the fundamental level where we are the same. That's the problem we have in this world. All the problem that we see in the world is that we focus so much on the outside differences, and we don't really focus on the fundamental same thing. And so with this, that is where it has to start. If we start paying too much attention to all the external differences, all these differences, then there is no space for us to have loving kindness, compassion for them. That only create more boundaries, walls between us, divisions, boundaries. So to break down all these differences, all these divisions, all these boundaries, wall, that does not allow us to, our compassion to expand to others, then we have to focus on that we are same, equal on that fundamental level. So that is this is the way, the first point of meditation is. Again, I think it is, if you really do this meditation, even someone you might disagree with on many different issues, or you disagree and you dislike them because of that. If you really focus on this fundamental level, that person and me, we are no different, we are equal, both of us want to be happy, and both of us do not want to be suffering. If we can really feel that, then you wouldn't feel so much anger and hatred toward that person. While you disagree, you can feel for that person. While you disagree, still you can disagree on many issues that you have differences. There's no problems. While being able to disagree, while able to disagree, at the same time to be able to feel for that person, that's the point. When we have compassion, it doesn't mean we try to agree with everything they do. It's more of how we feel about them from inside. I can feel for that person, have compassion for that person, love for that person, sense of care for that person. At the same time, I can disagree in their actions, belief in many things. So that is the first point. And then as if you look from another perspective, while we want happiness and just as we want happiness, do not want suffering, equally each and every sentient being want happiness and do not suffering. Equal, we are no difference in that, on that fundamental level. But on one hand, when we think of oneself, it's one person. When we talk about others, it's countless sentient beings. So then who is more important? On one side is countless sentient beings, and one side is one sentient beings. If you are looking with more unbiased mind, then countless sentient beings seems more important than just one selfish individual. So again, reflecting, contemplating, concentrating that can also help us to have more feeling of others being important. And that is the when we begin to see others being important, then that open our mind, our heart, to have a compassion for them. And the second point is reflecting, contemplating on faults and disadvantages and shortcoming of the selfish attitude or self-centeredness. And because this selfish attitude or self-centeredness attitude is the main internal obstacles to cultivate loving kindness and compassion. So to reduce and to overcome that, then we have to first understand that how the faults of that, the disadvantage of that. And in concerning that, then it is explained in all the sutra and Nagarjuna's writing and all Shantideva's writing and all the Lamrim, all the Lojong, that it explained all the sufferings, all the problem, all the conflict that is there, from big conflict, very small conflict, big problem to small problems, they all are result of selfish attitude, self-centeredness attitude. All the conflict problem we have with from country to country, from certain group to another group, certain community to another community, based on whatever, from individual to individual in our everyday life, is a clashes of two self-cherishing mind, selfish attitude. It's a clashes of my selfish attitude and someone's selfish attitude. We have problem, and we have problem because of my selfish attitude and that person's selfish attitude. We are having a conflict because of that selfish attitude. If we don't have that selfish attitude, we will not have the problem, the conflict that we are having. The more selfish attitude, the more self-centeredness we are, the more unhappy we become. The more selfish one is, then the more one feel the world has to revolve around me. It becomes all about my well-being, my happiness. So everyone has to fulfill that. So when you feel someone is not fulfilling that, you are unhappy. Dissatisfied, unhappy. Why we are so unhappy? When we do get unhappy, a lot of time when we feel hurt. Why do we feel hurt? Because we feel someone didn't fulfill that what you expected. You wanted, you have something expectations, them to treat you in certain way. I deserve to be treated that way. because I'm more important or what that. And so you have certain that, and when those are not met, then we become disappointed, hurt, and become unhappy. On other hand, so anyway, so that is, reflecting, contemplating on that. And then third point is reflecting, contemplating, meditating on advantage or benefit or cherishing thought for others. And again, in all those teachings, it is explained all the happiness, all the joy that there is there, from small joy and happiness to the greatest joy and happiness of fully enlightened state, they all are result of cherishing thought for others. Again, we can see the ultimate happiness of fully enlightened state cannot be there without bodhicitta mind, loving kindness, compassion. So only through the loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, one can achieve fully enlightened state. So therefore that joy, happiness is a result of bodhicitta mind, which is cherishing thought for others. In order to achieve happiness of liberations, individual liberations, even nirvana, even that is a result of cherishing thought for others. In order to that liberation, you need to have the, as we mentioned, the special insight, the wisdom realizing emptiness. In order to that have special insight, you need to have single pointed concentrations, shamatha, karma avoiding. In order to have that, you need to have a strong foundation of moral discipline. And that strong foundation of moral discipline is based on compassion. It's based on cherishing thought for others. When we practice refraining from engaging in 10 non-virtuous action, why should I refrain from taking someone's life? Because I cherish that life as my life. Because I cherish that sentient being's life is as precious as it is my own life. If I don't cherish that life, then I wouldn't have any problem of taking that life. Same thing, why I don't steal? Because I cherish that person. I don't want to hurt that person. Just as if someone steals mine, I will be so upset, so hurt, so angry. Same way, if I take someone's belongings without their consent and that, then I will be hurting that person, harming that person. So with all of those 10 non-virtuous actions, how on the basis of understanding others' feelings and not wanting to hurt them, not wanting to harm them, that's based on compassion. That practice is based on cherishing for others. And so from that perspective, again, even the happiness of liberations, individual liberation, also is a result of cherishing thought of others, of loving kindness, compassion. Even the happiness of high rebirth is also a result of that. Again, is the precious human rebirth, for example, high rebirth is a result of our practice of pure morality, which is based on compassion, cherishing others, as I mentioned. And if we have a good fortune to have a less problem in our wealth, we don't have to struggle and starve, but we have enough. It's a result of our wealth. It's result of our practice of generosity. Again, the practice of generosity is based on, again, cherishing others. Why would I like to practice generosity? Why would I like to help someone? Why would I give someone? Because I've feeling for that person's. I can feel that person's suffering and pain. I can feel that person needs, and therefore I want to help and practice the generosity. That practice comes through the cherishing others. As a result, we have a better wealth. And also the happiness of being surrounded by a kind, nice people in our life, as well as to have as well as for us to have a healthy and good body and healthy body, and so again they are a result of the practice of patience. Again, the practice of patience is based on cherishing others, not wanting to just someone hurt me, even though someone hurt me, because that is another sentient beings. I don't want to hurt back them. By appreciating, cherishing that as another being, I don't want to do the same thing that he or she did to me. That what he or she did to me was very painful, hurtful. I don't want to create the same pain and hurtful back to that. Through that kind of understanding, then we practice patience. So that practice of patience comes through that cherishing others. As a result of practicing patience, then we have many, we have healthy, good body. We are surrounded by good people, kind people, and like that. And then, of course, if we look from with our own experience, with a small, even a small experience that we might have, glimpse or small experience we have, even though we do not have true loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, but even when we have little bit of when you are able to do something, really, when you really, out of really, sincerely, truly from your heart, you see someone needs of your help, and you are able to be there and to be able to provide the help, and the joy and happiness that you see in them, that being able to see their help, the satisfaction, the joy, the happiness that you get, to see a smile and joy in that person when you are able to do something for that person. That kind of joy, satisfaction, happiness, much more than the joy and happiness to be able to spend in the beach. Not in comparison. Or the joy of having to be able to experience a delicious lunch, dinner. There is no comparison. Like as a parent, when you see the children's needs of your help, something, and you are able to provide that help, and you see the joyness and happiness in there, the satisfaction, the joy, happiness that give to you is nothing compared to any kind of joy, satisfaction you get from other external things. So this is something we are talking about, not even true love and compassion. pure, true love and compassion. So therefore, when we have true, pure love, compassion, bodhicitta, the level of joy, the level of satisfactions, the level of happiness is much more higher that we can even can't imagine at the moment. And so therefore, that is why the cherishing thought for others lead us, and give us so many different levels of happiness. Joy. So the benefit of that. And so that is third point. And the fourth point is exchanging self with others. What it means is that doesn't mean we are exchanging our physical body with self with others. What it means is exchanging the attitude. Okay? At the moment, we have this attitude. We are this selfish attitude that we are more important, most important than anyone else. The others are less important. First is me, then second, my family, third, my friend, fourth, my neighborhood, this and that. But always first is me. That is the first, most important. Then second important, third important, then we have all this down like that. Changing that attitude. Saying the others, seeing others even more important than yourself. So when we train to see others even more important than yourself, it doesn't mean you neglect yourself, you don't take care of yourself. Do you get it? While you take care of yourself, you even take care of others even more. Why you don't neglect yourself, same time you don't neglect others even more. And you have to take care of yourself because you are one of the sentient beings. You have to love yourself because you are one of the sentient beings. You have to have compassion for yourself because you are one of the sentient beings. So you cannot ignore yourself in that, but not the way we do on the expense of others at the moment. That's what we do. Do you get it? On the expense of others. It doesn't matter whether others suffer or not, as long as it gives me happiness. That kind of attitude has to be changed. And so we train our minds to see while we cherish ourselves, we learn to cherish others even more. While we train to see ourselves important, we train to see others even more important. While we train to take care of ourselves, we train to take care of others even more. And so that is the fourth point. And the fifth point is the practice of Tonglen, taking and giving, to cultivate and to improve and increase the practice, loving kindness and compassion. So the practice of taking and giving is like without going so much details. you take the sufferings of all other sentient beings and the cause of all suffering on yourself through your visualization, imaginations. And by using the breath as a tool, vehicle, so when you breathe in, you can visualize taking all the suffering and pain of others in the form of black smoke and into through your nostril, and then destroying your selfish self-centeredness or selfish attitude, black spot on your heart, and destroying that and transforming that, and then feeling with loving kindness, compassion. And when you breathe out, then you visualize all your virtues, all your positive, all your excellent, everything that you have, transforming, which fulfilling jewel, whatever their other sentient beings' needs are, fulfilling that, giving them happiness, joy, cause of happiness and joy, and them receiving happiness and joy. And so you do again and again, and with really feeling that you have taken on their pain and suffering, with really feeling that you have given everything that you have to them, and improve their happiness. And so when you do that practice, then your love and compassion increases, become more intense, more stronger, and to be able to expand more and more. So that is the practice that we do. And then after that, once you have the great loving kindness and compassion, then again, like the previous one, then after that you have the special attitude, and then after with that special attitude, then you have the bodhicitta mind. So driven by that great love and compassion, then you begin to, even though you have this incredible, powerful and incredible intention, motivations, and mind of love, loving kindness and compassion, totally concerned about others' well-being and so forth. Even though you have that mind, when you actually try to free them from their suffering and cause of suffering and trying to help them to lead their happiness, then you begin to see you yourself is in problem. You yourself doesn't know how to swim, so how can you help them to, someone is drowning, you are drowning yourself, so how can you help someone who is drowning? Even though you have the intention to wanting to help them to drown, help them from drowning, intention itself is not enough. When you yourself is under the delusions, how can you help others to overcome the delusions? When you yourself is unable to overcome delusions, even though you have the intention, good intention, wanting to help others to overcome delusions. And so when you have that, then you begin to see, oh, I need to overcome all this delusion, obscuration, and actualize all the qualities and the most perfect and complete state, and wish to achieve fully enlightened state. And so that wish to achieve that fully enlightened state, driven by that great love and compassion, when you have that spontaneous, effortless, and that is the bodhicitta mind. And so these two methods, one can use any of those methods to practice, meditate, to cultivate the bodhicitta mind. And once you have cultivated the bodhicitta mind, in order to stabilize it, the bodhicitta mind, in order to stabilize it, then you try to make you take a aspiring bodhicitta vows, aspiring bodhicitta vows. So aspiring bodhicitta vows is that when you have that bodhicitta mind, then you make a strong commitment to, in order to stabilize that through ceremony, led by a qualified master, then you make a strong commitment that you will not give up this bodhicitta mind. You will not be separated from that bodhicitta mind, and you will not let that bodhicitta mind slip away. And so making that strong commitment vows in that. So that's aspiring bodhicitta vows. And after that, then again, even though that aspiring bodhicitta mind is very powerful, incredible for your own happiness, for others' happiness, but just by that itself, that you cannot achieve fully enlightened state. And then you begin to see it is not enough, just, even though that is wonderful, it's that you have to engage in the practice of the bodhisattva, such as practice of generosity and so forth, six perfection and so forth. And so the more you understand that, then you have a strong wish to engage in those practices. Not only you have that wish to, that wonderful wish and that wonderful bodhicitta mind, but actually engage into those other practices. And when you see the needs of that, and when you have a strong wish to practice that, then you take the engaging bodhicitta vows. So then you take the engaging bodhicitta vows, and having taken engaged in bodhicitta vows, then we practice into the practice of six perfection and so forth. And so then here Lama Tsongkhapa explained the practice of six perfections. So that we finished the verse number 14. So now we are in verse number 15. So the generosity is the first among the the practice of six perfections, the practice of generosity. So that is why first he explained the benefit of practice of generosity. Then he explained how to practice the practice of generosity. And so here he's in terms of the benefit and advantage of practice of generosity. Generosity, wish granting jewel with which you fulfill the hopes of sentient beings. So he's saying it's like the wish granting jewel which can fulfill all the hope and needs of sentient beings with generosity, that we can fulfill the sentient beings' temporary and ultimate needs and hope, and overcome their temporary and ultimate suffering and cause of sufferings through the practice of generosity. So maybe I can, maybe a little bit later. And it's the best weapon for cutting the knot of miserliness. And so generosity, the practice of generosity is antidotes that overcome the miserliness. And miserliness is where holding very tightly to what you have and not being able to share, even when you have more than you can share. Always feeling that you don't have enough. Not feeling that feeling that you don't have enough to share, and therefore we hold it very tightly. And so the practice of generosity helps us to loosen up holding and grasping that very tightly. So it helps to loosen up, and so then it becomes more easier to be able to give, to be able to share. Yeah, in terms of that, there's a stories of at the Buddha's time, there was one elderly lady who was very, very Maisiri, who was having a very difficult of practice on the generosity and giving, so that she couldn't share anything with anyone. She was having very difficult of letting go anything, even for her, even for some of those who are very close to her. She wouldn't. She has very difficult with that. So then at the very beginning he said the Buddha taught her to give from one hand to another hand. Skillful means. She was unable to give to anyone. So then Buddha said from one hand to another. It's just about getting used to, certain things you just do and then you started to think it's okay. Start to feel more comfortable, safe. So she started doing that, and slowly, after doing many times, over the time, she feel confidence, comfortable to give from one hand to another hand. And then Buddha encouraged, advised her to give to small, not a big, very small, insignificant, very small, to someone who's very most dear, most close to her. Slowly she was able to do that. And then slowly the Buddha guide and to give to someone small thing, like not a big thing, a small thing, to someone who is a little bit more distant but close to her. And slowly, and that is how he guide. With the practice over the time, then she was able to overcome that miserliness and sense of holding very tightly, and then she was able to loosen up that, and she was able to share and give and practice the generosity. So that is and it is the altruistic contact that enhances your self-confidence and undaunted courage. And again, I think it is when we practice loving kindness, compassion, and then generosity is in some way expression of your loving kindness, compassion. The act of generosity is some level of expression of your love, compassion, sense of care. Okay? And so when you are able to express your love, compassion with that kind of generous act, so when you practice that kind of generosity and love and compassion, then it gives you much more self-confidence, self-respect, and courage. Yeah, when you are able to see when you are able to see and feel your sense of loving kindness, compassion, your sense of practice of generosity through that loving kindness, compassion, then definitely, it gives you more self-respect. Definitely, it gives you more self-confidence, more courage. And also then that also helps us to be more courageous, more confident in giving again in the future. And to practice more in the future. As there is a statement from one of the sutta, the joy of generosity, the practice of generosity. It said that when you really practice the generosity from our heart, out of sense of compassion, sense of care, sense of love, concern, when we really do that, there is a joy at the very beginning, even you practice the practice of generosity, when you have the wish when you have developed wish to help and give, even that moment you have a joy. And then when you are actually in the actions of giving, when you actually give whatever you the practice, whatever the object, the generosity, when you give, then there is incredible sense of joy and satisfaction. And when you see the smile, the joyfulness in that person, as I explained, then there is even more joy, even more. And then when you look back afterwards, when you reflect, contemplate, and then just to remember that you are able to help, practice the generosity, give you such a satisfaction mind, such a joy, so there is joy in all different level of practice of that at the very beginning, before the action itself, during the actions, after the actions. And not only joy to ourselves, also joy in that person who is receiving the help. Not only joy, not only it gives them joy, a lot of time it can give them a lot of respect and confidence in other beings. Some people who have lost sense of respect to humanity, sense of confidence to humanity, through the act of that compassion act of generosity can revive their loss of respect for the humanity, their loss of confidence to humanity. They begin to see that, oh, there are some human beings who cares, who love. They begin to see not all human beings are uncaring, unloving, ungiving. And so it can have so many different levels of positive impact on yourself and to others, on so many different levels, such as the practice of generosity. Is the basis for your good reputation to be proclaimed in 10 directions. And of course, when you practice sincerely practice of generosity, and of course, people get inspired by your activities of that generosity. People get inspired by that. People can get encouraged for them to be generous itself. They can be inspired by that. And of course, your own reputations. Of course, you are not doing for your reputations, but it just your reputation just increases. People just love. People respect and love those people who are very compassionate and generous. And then in terms of how to practice, then knowing this, the wise have devoted themselves to the excellent path of completely giving away their bodies belonging in marriage. I, the yogi, have practiced that, just that. You who also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in some way. And so with knowing of that, then we try to practice the practice of generosity, of giving of physical wealth, if we have, to give to those who have less, who are in needs, to be able to practice that, and to share our virtues by dedicating for the happiness of others, for the goodness of others. So we practice the generosity of our virtues by dedicating for others, for the others' goodness, happiness, and so on. And then the practice of generous body, which is normally not advice for the beginner, okay? But as we progress in our path for the highly developed bodhisattvas, then when you reach that when you reach certain level in that, then you are encouraged to practice even the generosity of your body. And when you reach certain level of the realizations and certain high bodhisattva path, then first of all, you are not wasting your life. In a sense, you know that you have control over your own next rebirth. Okay, so it's not like wasting your precious human life. So they have control over their rebirth. So that is just like a changing a body, changing a cloth. Okay, and secondly, because of their strong loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and wisdom relies on the emptiness directly, they don't feel the strong, intense pain as we feel for an ordinary being when we have to sacrifice or give our own body. And it is also said that for the bodhisattvas, it says it is in Chandrakirti's supplementary engaging the middle way school. It is explained that for the bodhisattvas, I think it was in the first Bhumi, for the bodhisattvas, when they hear someone asking for help, okay, for help, generosity practice, or to give, when he hears someone coming and asking for help, the joy and blissfulness that they get overpower even the great blissfulness that some of the arhat has in their single-pointed concentrations. Even just hearing of someone need help gives you incredible joy, blissfulness, such as that. It's like, of course, there's nothing we can compare with ordinary world of those beyond ordinary experiences. But if we can relate in a very small way in ordinary, someone you're most loving, caring, like as a parent, a child, you really love and care and so much, and that you want to do so much for them, and you are willing, you are always wanting to be, and then when they ask some help, suddenly you get so happy and joyfulness that they are asking my help or my opinion or my advice, because you want so much, there's so much wanting to do that. So even just asking for that gives you incredible joy. And then of course when you are able to do that, and when you actually do that, then of course the level of the joy, the level of the blissfulness and the happiness is much more stronger. So in generosity, normally there is the three kind of generosity, or sometimes four. The generosity of the material wealth, the generosity of the Dharma, so sharing the knowledge, giving the knowledge, sharing the knowledge, and then generosity of protection of the
Fear.
fear, protecting from the fear. And so that means, like for example, when you see one example with when you liberate sentient beings, animal, anything that's going to be killed, that are going to be executed, so saving them from that kind of fear, or someone who is going to be kind of punished or whatever, that, and if we can help to reduce that fear. Or like sometimes you see some certain insects, certain animals almost drowning in the water, trying to save them from that area, or some others. That is kind of the generosity of fearless, protecting from the fear, and then generosity of love. The generosity of love is showing, caring, love, compassion. And again, I think maybe now in this modern world of this age, I think maybe that might be the one of the most needy one. It seems people. It seems people are having a very difficult of not feeling the love and compassion from others, lack of love and compassion, and then I think that is creating a lot of another form of suffering and pain and problem in the society now. Feeling of loneliness. And where does that loneliness come? Because they feel there's no one who would care about them, love them. A lot of time is like that. If they feel compassion and love and care of someone, then they wouldn't feel that kind of loneliness. They always feel, even though they are not physically there, they always feel that there is someone there. But when you can't feel that, then that is seems one of the new big problems that so that is a practice of generosity. And in terms of the 6 perfections, it is explained that each of those perfections are more easy to practice than the subsequents. The practice of generosity is more easier than the practice of moral discipline. The practice of moral discipline is more easier than practice of patience. And that is more easier than joyous effort in virtues. And that's more easier than concentration, single pointed concentration. And that is more easier than the wisdom. In terms of that, it is again in Chandrak, it is engaged in the middle way. He explained that way, and also others. Also in terms of the practice, of course, those all 6 perfections has to be practiced by all the practitioners, but especially it is recommended the first 3 mainly for the lay practitioner, and the last 3 mainly for the audience. But of course, it has to be practiced by everyone. Also, that is another. And each of those previous practice help to the next level of the practice of perfections. For example, one example would be if we practice if we perfect it, or if we get good at practice of generosity, then there's less clinging to the objects, things. There's less holding tightly and clinging and grasping, and less attached. So when you have less attachment, then it is more easier to practice the practice of morality, moral discipline. Because a lot of those practices we are unable to because of attachment. Why do we steal? Because of attachments. Why do we engage in sexual misconduct? Because of attachment. Why we do kill? Because a lot of time it is attachments. Even though it's not all the case for hunting, it's a part of attachments to the sport. We kill so we can eat. It's attachment to the food. Attachment for the fur, the skins, and so forth. So a lot of those why we are unable to practice the moral discipline and refrain from those non-virtuous actions is a lot of time because of the strong attachments. And so when you practice, when your practice of generosity get good, when we train, and as it get better and better, and then as we have less and less clinging, grasping, and holding tightly, and less attachment, then so that is how each practice, previous practice, help to the next level of the practice of six perfections. So again, all of six perfections, again, Lama Tsongkhapa explained in terms of benefit of each practice and then how to practice that. And so in a ethical or moral discipline, again, he start with the benefit. The ethical discipline is the water that wash away the stain of faulty actions. So again, it is like the water that wash away the stain left by the faulty action or negative karma. So when we, through the practice of moral discipline or ethical discipline, first we don't create more negative karma. Okay? We don't engage into one of non-virtuous actions. So we stop creating more negative karma. And by practicing that, we don't enhance and activate the previous negative karma. Okay? By our present actions, what it does is it activates previous negative karma and it creates new negative karma. And so again, in a way, it not only it stop from creating more negative karma, but it also stop from activating and enhancing the previous negative karma. So in that way, it's like the water that wash the stain. It's the ray of moonlight that cools the scorching heat of defilements. So, in a heat, when it's heat, then the moon has this cooling effect that cool down the heat. And same way, the practice of moral discipline cool down the heat of defilements. So when we practice the practice of moral discipline, such as refraining from 10 non-virtuous actions and engage in 10 virtuous actions, It helps in many different levels of cooling that. One, when we refrain from 10 non-virtuous actions on the three mental levels, is refraining from capricious mind, that is like attachments, wanting, and ill will feeling, that's more like the anger, and wrong views. So through the practice of able to refrain from that, we cool all these negative emotions, those defilements. And also by refraining from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, we train ourselves not to express our defilements through actions. Okay? So we are not taking the defilement, the negative feelings further in the actions. So in that way it cool down instead of that negative emotion exploding with that actions. And same with the practice of refrain from lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, meaningless, idle gossip, and so forth. Again, those are again expressions of our defilements through speech. And through the practice of moral discipline, we cool down and not allow that delusions to bifurcate that energy through our speech. And so therefore that is how it cooled down that defilement. It makes you written like a Mount Meru in the midst of 9 kinds of beings. I don't know what is 9 kinds of beings. I think the translation is little bit. It just means is like among the masses, among the masses. That is what it means. It doesn't necessarily mean number 9. Okay, it just means among the masses, among many of them, you stand out like Mount Meru. Okay, Mount Meru is the most center of the mountains and the most highest mountain supposedly. So that mountain is the center and stand out among all others. So that means with your practice of morality or ethical discipline, then you stand out among all others. By its power, you are able to bend all beings to your good influence without recourse to mesmerizing glare. Even this translation, I don't know whether in the Tibetan version exactly that same. I think is maybe trying to make a little bit more what they call, poem, yeah. So again, when you practice yourself moral discipline, and then when you encourage and inspire others to practice that, they will not be kind of look with you surprise. Do you get it? Because they see that you practice what you teach. Because they know you walk the talk. So because they see what you are trying to inspire them or what you are trying to say to them, they see that you yourself are practicing that. So then they will not be so surprised when looking with big eyes, On the other hand, you don't explain, you yourself does not follow the moral discipline or ethical discipline, and then you ask them to be moral, ethical, people just laugh at you inside. Even they might not laugh at and they will look with very surprised eyes. What is that? And so therefore, through that, not only you are able to practice the moral discipline, but you can inspire and encourage others to practice as moral discipline. In that way, then I think, and I think that is same. We see it is so true in our world. I think people, leaders, whether it's political or spiritual leaders in different levels, those who are more moral, ethical, less corruption, they are able to speak against corruptions. And even when they are able to speak against corruption, people listen to it, people hear it, and they feel that. But then people who themselves are corrupted, or leaders who themselves are corrupted and doesn't practice moral and ethical, first of all, most of them, they wouldn't talk about that. Okay, they wouldn't raise about the corruptions and those moral and ethic, because they know if they start, others will start pointing a hand to them, finger to them. So they are afraid to speak about those issues. They wouldn't discuss, they wouldn't bring up those issues much. And even they do bring up, then the finger will be raised immediately against them with a big surprised eyes. And so then even they bring the issue, it doesn't become effective. It doesn't become effective. Instead it becomes destructive, chaos. It only makes things chaos there. But when someone practices that, and when they raise and bring that, then that becomes very effective. And so that is where it is saying. So we'll stop here at the moment. Okay. How to practice it, the ethical discipline. So knowing this, by understanding all the benefit of the practice of ethical discipline, so knowing this, the holy ones have safeguarded as they would their eyes the precept that they have accepted to keep purely. I, the yogi, have practiced just that. You who also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in this way. And so here, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying that whatever vows, precept that we might have taken, whether it is for some, those who have taken the Pratimoksha vows, whether it is lay vows, whether it is the ordained, different level of ordained vows, whether it is the Bodhisattva's vows, whether it is the Tantric vows, whatever precept vows that we have taken, or even if we haven't taken any of the vows, at least to refrain from 10 non-virtuous actions and engage 10 virtuous actions, and trying to keep them purely without diluting them, without polluting them. So precious as you will try to protect your eyes from any harm all the time. If you see something, when you go through, if you see a branch there, immediately you will try to protect your eyes from being so you will try all your best to protect your eyes from getting damaged, from getting hurt. Same way, we have to protect with all our capacity through the mindfulness introspections. With that strong, we need to protect all our vows, moral precepts, or vows and precepts, commitments, or moral discipline. that similarly like that way as we will protect our eyes, or that as we will protect our own life, just as we will protect our life no matter what, from all the different obstacles, challenges, that we will try all our best to safeguard, protect. In the same way, we need to safeguard and protect our vows, precept, moral discipline as much as possible. And so, so that is and due to not being mindful, or due to the delusions being too strong, if we do somehow broke our vows, precepts, if we do somehow pollute them, then immediately we try to do the purifications without any delay as soon as possible. And we try to renew those precepts and vows in whatever way it can be renewed as soon as possible. So that is the practice of. And then third, that is the practice of the second, the perfection of ethical or moral discipline. And third one is the practice of perfection of the patience. And again, that one has again too the benefit of the practice and how to practice. So here said, patience is the best adornment for those with power, and perfect ascetic practice for those tormented by delusions. So patience is like the best ornament for those who are able to have the mental power to deal with any of the challenges and difficult situations and difficult peoples and so forth. Just as our external ornament will beautify the persons externally with all different ornament, it beautifies that person's appearance externally. Same way, this practice of patience is internal ornament that beautify the quality of that person's, that beautify the person's and again, as many of the even medical research as they have shown, the opposite of the patients, the anger, eats immune systems, our immune system. It eats up our immune system. It destroys our immune systems. It leads to a lot of disease. People who are more angry, they are more likely to have heart-related disease. Again, there is, and also I've heard from some others, people who have observed and who have some kind of diabetes and so forth. They have observed when their mind is kind of a little bit agitated, they can see the sugar level going up. They can see blood pressure going up. When their mind is more calm, peaceful, they can see the diabetes, the sugar level, the blood pressure is coming down again. So therefore, the practice of patience is the one which helps us to keep our mind peaceful, undisturbed, unagitated, more still, and so that it protect us from all those sickness in that. Mm. So it's a perfect ascetic practice. Um, I don't know ascetic, but it is the most perfect practice to protect ourselves for those who have been tormented by the delusion, especially the anger, you know. So, as I just mentioned, um, being tormented by the anger will be the one of the worst things. Um, when you live with strong anger, it's like almost like being in hell ramps. And that's the worst that can be tormented. How can we protect ourselves from that kind of tormentations, of that kind of delusions, such as that kind of anger, and through the practice of the patience, we can protect ourselves through the practice of the patience. Mm. His Holiness Dalai Lama was interviewed many times by many different journalists over many years at different places, different. Um, what is the secret of his health, good health, and his looking so young, even though he's now almost 83. He looks much more younger, and it's much more he's much healthy. And even he said when he did he does a checkup both in India and when he used to come state in my Mayo clinic, general checkup, and those doctors told him that his inside, his organs, all that, they seems same as a person who is 10 years younger than him. That. So anyway, a lot of journalists are asking what is the secret for that, and of course, I like his normal answer with the humors, and that he said that is secret. So what is the secret about that? And he said that is secret. But then he explained he truly believed it is because of his peace of mind. He said that is the main. He believed that is the main source of his good health. Is the source of him looking much more younger. All these things because of his peace of the mind being peaceful. And so, therefore, again, here the practice of the patience is that what help us to keep our mind peaceful. It is the high soaring eagle as the enemy of the snake of anger. So just as like eagles overpower and destroy the enemy of snake of anger, and so the patience is the antidote towards the angers that overpower and destroy the angers. And the thickest armor against the weapon abusive language. And so again, when someone uses very, very abusive, very harsh speech and language, and then of course we get hurt by that, and then because of being hurt by that, then we go through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. not only the feeling of hurt um, and pain and suffering, then that lead to another level of the mind, and then we start to become angry, upset, and in some cases that lead to hatred. And so then all this, again, another level of our mind agitations, disturb, another level of pain and sufferings. And so, but if we practice the patience, then we don't have to go through all of that. If we are able to use the practice of patience, then we don't have to go through all these different level of the pain and sufferings. So it is like when you go in the war, you wear the armor to protect yourself from the weapons that the enemy throw at you, and that protects and saves you, your life. Same way, the patience is like that. If we have a strong practice of patience, when they say that kind of abusive, harsh, you can hear that, you can let it go from here. You are able to let it from here. You don't take it so personal, and you don't take it down there and hold it there. So if you don't really take it personal, and if you can really listen from here, and if you can let it from go here, then you don't feel so much hurt. And then you don't really, if you don't feel hurt, then you don't experience the pain and suffering. And not only that, then it doesn't lead to another level of anger and hatred and the pain and suffering that come from that as well. So it is the greatest protection armor. Of course, again, it is not so easy. Absolutely, it's not easy, but it's not something impossible. That you often see many masters, teachers, practitioners that have been able to do that. One of my teachers, which passed away a couple of years ago, he was the ex-abbot of Serache Monastery for 7 years, King Lobsang Tsering. And so, of course, being a abbot or in charge of a big monastery where there is more than 4,000 monks, and when you count Serache, Serame, 5,000-6,000 monks, and so it is not easy to fulfill everyone's wishes with that, especially when you have discussions, meetings about how to move forward in different, how to improve, how to move forward in different areas, because it's a big monastery, so there are many different committees or to taking care of different things, health, the Saraja health associations, then the education associations, and there are like shop and restaurant, and there is a library, and so there are so many different under that, and so all the time there is meeting how to improve, how to get better, and so when you have those kind of meetings, so everyone has different views, even though they might have same goal or wanting to improve, but we all come with different idea, different view how it is. This is the best way to improve. And so there's always clashes of that. And of course, as a leader, you have to take decisions. And when you take decisions, there will be always some people who are not happy because they have a different idea of view how it should be done. So it is not easy when it's such a big organizations, and sometimes of course there will be, some who are not happy with the decisions, and sometimes they can get upset, and sometimes they can be they can be not so respectful and disrespectful, and so on, and all these things. And so my teacher used to say, also in the everyone, and also to us. He said he will try. He said with his best intention and motivation, he will take his decision. He have to take decision. He cannot take any decisions because it's going to hurt some other people's, according to what he's in the end. And but he said those who criticize and who say bad things and this and that, this, he said, I listen from here and I let it go from here. So he said, I listen from one ear and let it go from here. And that is it. So then you don't have to carry that baggage at home and then suffer, thinking about that day, night, weeks, months, year. Someone says something, we heard that, we just let it go from here, that's it, done. It was unpleasant in that moment, and that's one instant of unpleasantness, that's it. The problem is then, we hear from here, then we take it home. Instead of letting go from here, we suck it here, keep it here, and go at home, and then play the recording again and again and again. And so then, instead of being a one moment of unpleasantness, we create thousands, multiple millions of unpleasantness. That's our own creations, and due to that we suffer ourselves. Another abbot, Khensu Lobsang, he also passed away a couple of years ago. He was abbot much more later. I heard one time there was a big meeting and big clashes in the meeting, of course, verbally. I think it was not an easy meeting, it was really quite difficult meeting. And and so the meeting finished, and then one of my friends, he was the disciplinary at that time, and of course he was also in the meeting. And he said after the meeting, he went to see the abbot sometime later, and he went, and I think he needed to ask something, discuss something, and then he apologized on the behalf of all the others monks at the meeting, how they interacted and everything. He felt it very. He felt it was a little bit disrespectful, and the way some of the monks responses and that, and so, and he said, I'm sorry that what happened to the meeting, and I feel, and he said, oh, you don't have to feel sorry and uncomfortable that I have left everything in the meeting. Everything that happens, I've left in the meeting. So he said he was just very relaxed, comfortable, and just chilling out there. And when he brought up that issue and saying sorry, he said, oh, you don't have to feel that. I'm not carrying that. I'm not carrying that. Everything that happens, it happened in a meeting, and I have left in the meeting. Those are the sign of a practitioner to be able to apply those teachings that we are describing here with their practice. If we can apply that, then I think we don't have to suffer so much. definitely there was unpleasantness in that, during that meeting. But that's it, or however how many ever minutes, hour it lasted is it. The problem with us, we take it with at home with us, and that is the thing. And that is the thing where we suffer so much. And not only we suffer, because we start playing that cassette again and again. Not only we suffer, then slowly we started to write new stories around it, you know. And so then we, by the end of days, weeks, months, then the story is totally different. It's a totally new stories, totally different stories. And then that developed more anger, more hatred, and more ill-will feeling, and negative thoughts and feelings. And so again, we all go through that, and it's unnecessary that we do that. And to protect ourselves from going through all of this is the practice of patience. And so that is the biggest protections. Sometimes we might feel, and sometimes people do say, sometimes some people do say, and sometimes people do think, and sometimes we might even feel, like the practice of patience, practice of loving kindness, compassion is sign of weakness. Sign of weakness. Sometimes you think people say sometimes, and sometimes you feel that if you practice patience, love, and compassion, it seems like you are exposing yourself to the more danger and being you are exposing yourself to more harm. You are putting yourself in more vulnerable situations. And on the other hand, if you are tough, angry, anger, and that, it seems like it is protecting you, it gives you a big shield, protecting yourself from someone taking advantage of you or exploiting you, and so on. That is sometimes how we feel it immediately if we don't analyze more deeper level. On the surface level, sometimes it might feel like that, it might seem like that. But if you analyze much more deeply, then it is not the case. When you are angry, you become most vulnerable. That is what I say. That is the point where you are most likely to make most stupid mistake, when you are angry. When you are patient and when you are more calm and peaceful, you are less vulnerable, because you are not going to make that kind of stupid mistake. So if you want to take a revenge to your enemy, what you need to, you make them angry, and they will do something stupid. So they will do something very stupid, which will take them in trouble, make them trouble, So that is what we do. When you are in that kind of anger, you would do some such thing. And so what you see is you become most vulnerable in that moment of anger. Compassion does not put you in that state of that kind of vulnerable. Compassion gives you a really more peace, calm, and to really able to contemplate, use your mind, and to be able to see if I do this, how harmful it's going to be, and long-term short, you are able to see and to all that. When you are angry, you can't see that. So patience is the best protection, not the anger. Anger is the one which put you in a vulnerable situation, not the patience. So here is in knowing this, knowing all this, by knowing all the faults and shortcoming and drawback of anger, and by knowing all the benefit, advantage of the patience, then the wise, the bodhisattva, such as bodhisattva, the wise have accustomed themselves in the various way and form to the emerald supreme patience. I, the yogi, have practiced that, just that. You who also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in the same way. So, when we talk about patience, in generally there are three kinds of patience. The patience to endure suffering, hardship, difficulties. So whenever we are faced with suffering, whenever we are faced with hardships, difficulties, the patience to endure that. So when we have that patience to endure that, then we don't create more sufferings. When we don't have the patience to endure that, there's already a little bit of suffering. Let's say my physical health is not good, okay? So I already have some physical pain, suffering. But when I am unable to endure that, I don't have patience to endure that, and when my mind gets upset and angry about that whole situation and that, then I create another level of pain and suffering on emotional, on mental level. So then I experience two levels of pain and suffering. Do you get it? And that is the case with anything, any situations, difficult situations with that. And on the other hand, through the understanding of karma, then I just accept it and endure it, accept it, then even though I might experience physical pain, I don't have to go through the mental, emotional pain. And also because if my mind is not disturbed, agitated, if my mind is peace and calm, also on a physical level, it can reduce the pain, even on physical level, to a certain degree, in certain level. On the other hand, when my mind disturbed, agitated with all kind of thoughts and that negative thought, not only increase on the emotional, mental level, but also through that your mental state, it could also increase your physical pain as well to certain level, certain degrees. And so then the patience, so that is the patience of accepting whatever suffering, pain that we might encounter, we might face. And then patience to endure some hardship when engaging in Dharma practice, when engaging into the virtuous actions, when engaging into the practice of the Bodhisattva path. So if we have those kind of patience, then even when we are faced with some obstacles on our path, when you are trying to be a good person, kind person, when you are kind of trying to be follow the Bodhisattva path, when you are trying to be more ethical, more moral, when you are faced with more challenges and so forth, if we have some level of patience to endure those obstacles, then you will not be discouraged by those obstacles. You will not easily give up your practice on your path just because of those some obstacles that you encounter. But if we don't have that patience, if it becomes too impatient, then when you encounter some of those obstacles, then we might easily give up our practice. We can easily become very discouraged. We can very easily become discouraged from being more ethical, more moral. We can very easily become discouraged from being a more kind person, compassionate person. We can very easily become discouraged from being helpful and beneficial to others. But if we have that patience, then those will not be obstacles. Mm. And I think especially nowadays, I think it seems the society has become more and more impatient. So this practice of patience seems to be more relevant even than before now. In this society of very fast-paced world, people have become more impatient. They want everything so fast because that is kind of surrounding that they grow up. Everything is fast. Everything is trying to get faster and faster. And so you expect that everything, not only you want to see positive changes, you want to see positive change immediately like that. And if it doesn't happen immediately like that, even though it is having a positive changes, when it doesn't happen like that because of your impatience, then we suffer so much. We give up from working on that because even though results are happening, because the results is not happening very fast, so you give up. Do you get what I mean? It's not that the result, it is not that there is good results and good transformations are happening, but then it's happening slowly. And our impatience cannot deal with that. We want very fast. And so then sometimes we just give up. And that means we cannot make any further than that. One thing. But if we have the patience, then we keep on working on that until we achieve the result, no matter how long it takes. So even it might take a long time, but you will not give up. You will keep on working on that. And by the end of it, we will achieve that. But if you are impatient, then we will give up because it is not, the result is not happening as fast as we want. And so then we don't work further, and then there is no result, even after a long time. And because of impatience, I mean, especially you can see that on the road, traffic. That is just one sign of how impatient the society is. 1-2 minutes of one make a difference, but people become so impatient. Sometimes someone is front, if they don't run immediately when the green is on, someone starts honking from back. Or someone, they can't stop even when it's already red, they just run it, put themselves in danger, put others in danger. And we often hear road races. All these are impatience in the road, traffic, and put yourself in danger, you put others in danger. So, the practice of patience is so important. You know? So I think practical level, when you are waiting, it is nice to listen to the teachings, nice to that can be helpful, not to be upset and impatient in those cases, or doing something meaningful. And so, anyway, that is, and then the patience of not being disturbed and responding in a negative way when someone harms or engage in harmful actions toward us or towards our friends, family, and so forth. So even when someone is being hurtful and harmful, whether it's on physical level, verbal level, whatever, with their how can we keep our mind calm, undisturbed, unagitated by their action, their behavior? Is the key. It doesn't mean that we don't respond. Do you get it, what I mean? It doesn't mean that you don't respond and allow them to roll over you or someone else. Patient doesn't mean that. Do you get it? Patient doesn't mean you allow someone to roll over you or roll over someone else. Doesn't mean that let them do whatever they do and not to take any action to stop that. It means with what state of mind do we respond? Do we react? Do we take actions? That is the key here. Patience is cultivating your mind calm and peaceful. Not allowing your mind to be agitated and disturbed by that person's actions and behavior. So with that practice of your patience, you are able to keep your mind undisturbed, unagitated, calm, and from that space of calmness, undisturbed mind, then you take whatever action is needed for to stop that kind of harmful behavior, because the harm is done to others and harm is done to the person who is doing that themselves. So then it is about whatever actions, whatever response, whatever we need to take it, we try to take it to stop such harmful actions, behavior, but more from that calm, peaceful mind. That's the key. And so the practice of patience is to have that calm, peaceful mind, undisturbed, unagitated mind. Okay, so that is the patience, the practice, and then the next one is concentration, joyous effort. And again, that one comes again like others on the the benefit and how to practice. Once you wear the armor of Rasul and in irreversible joyous effort, your expertise in the scripture inside will increase like a waxing moon. So again, as there is saying, for anything to be a successful and achieve anything, you need a hard work, and so effort, perseverance is a key to achieve worldly success or spiritual success. And not only effort, joyous effort. And so when you have a joyous effort in your virtues, in your practice, then of course the practice will progress very quickly, very smoothly, and you have a good result, like a waxing moon. At the moment, we are unable to have success in our practice because we don't have the joyous effort. A lot of time we don't even have a perseverance and effort. Forget about the joyous one. That is totally different. Not even non-joyful effort. If we struggle, even that one. And so therefore, definitely, we struggle with the success of our practice. Imagine when you enjoy your practice, whatever form of practice that you do, if you have that kind of enjoyment, joyfulness, then it wouldn't be so tiring to do the practice, isn't it? At the moment, when you think of practice, or do I really have to do the practice? Can I skip today? So it is more of feeling a burden. So of course, when you do practice, it's more tiring. And so therefore, it doesn't inspire you to do the practice. So since it doesn't inspire you to practice, then definitely wouldn't practice so much. You have to put yourself so much. You have to push yourself so much to practice instead of being able to do very joyfully in that. And so, on the other hand, when you have joyous effort and when you are able to practice joyfully, then it inspires you and it gives you so much energy. And so you can do many sessions, you can do long sessions, and it's not tiring, it's not a burden. And so when you do the practice with that kind of attitude and with that kind of things, then definitely you are going to have much more quicker result, better result. So I think we have to always have to find a way to enjoy our practice, you know. That is one key thing. How can you make your practice more enjoyable? And of course, we all have to find our own way to make it enjoyable, because we all are not same, so we all find different ways to enjoy our practice. If you start enjoying your practice, then definitely you are going to have a better and quick result. You will make all your action meaningful for attaining enlightenment. So of course, without the joyous effort, without the perseverance and joyous effort, even at the very beginning we have some intention, motivations, and maybe some to practice. Then again, after some time we give up, and then it doesn't lead to any result, any further results. And so, but when you have this perseverance and joyous effort, then once you start your practice or your path, your journey, then it keeps on moving forward until you achieve fully enlightened state. And so that whatever practice that you have started, there is the result, there is the end, completion of that. And that completion can be done through that joyous effort. And it will bring whatever you undertake to its intent and conclusion. Yeah, that is the one. So it take to that and make it meaningful that way. Knowing this, the Bodhisattvas have exerted a great wave, and so knowing the benefit of that, then the Bodhisattvas, the wise ones, have exerted great waves of joyous effort, washing away all the laziness. I, the yogi, have practiced just that. You who also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in that way. And so joyous effort is the antidote towards laziness. And laziness, of course, there are three different three levels of laziness, and those laziness are the obstacles for success of our practice. So yeah, I think maybe I think we don't have too much time to go further with that. Okay. And then next is concentration, meditative concentrations. Again, it's same benefit and how to practice. Meditative concentration is the king wielding power of the mind. And so again, when you have this karma abiding shamatha meditative concentrations, then you can direct your mind wherever you want to direct. So you have control over your mind. So you have the power and control over your mind. At the moment, we cannot direct our mind wherever we want. Our mind actually directs us. But once you have that shamatha, then if you want to direct in this direction to this object, you can direct there. If you want to direct another object, another there, and you can keep there as much as you want. And so that if you fix it one point, it remains there, immovable, like a mighty Mount Meru. So when you develop that, then if you fix in place for whatever object you fix your mind, then you can remain that without being moved by the distraction, excitement, by laxity and dullness, but with a very steady, strong, and clarity and intensity towards your objects, like a Mount Meru, totally very strong, unshakable, unmovable by the waves and the wind of excitement and distractions and laxity and dullness. Mm. If you apply it, then it can engage fully with any virtuous objects. And then when you extend your mind from not just one object, but many objects, of many virtuous objects, you are able to extend it. So if you kind of condense it to just one object, you can keep it to just one object. And if you can let it to many objects, you can also be able to concentrate on many objects. I think maybe this one I'm just wondering. At the very beginning, of course, when we try to develop the concentration, of course, we have to keep on same objects all the time. But once you have cultivated that karma abiding shamatha, then I think you have developed such control over your mind, you can actually focus on many objects at the same time. I think maybe that is what I think. So it's almost like multitasking. Okay? When you have that, then you can do many multitasking. But until that, multitasking is not good. It's obstacles to have too many objects. You just have to focus on one object when you are trying to achieve it. But once you have already achieved it, then I think you can focus on many objects. It leads to the great accelerating bliss of your body and mind, and mind being made serviceable. So when you achieve mindfulness, and not mindfulness, shamatha or karma abiding or meditative concentrations, after the 9 stages, at the 9 stages of meditations, then you are able to keep your mind to the object effortlessly for a long time, as much as you want, without the faults of distraction and laxity. With, again, as I mentioned, with a steady clearness and intensity. And then, with that, then it gives you a kind of lightness and flexibility in your body and mind. It brings kind of it makes your body and mind very light and very flexible. And with that kind of flexibility and lightness in your body and mind, then it brings a great blissfulness on physical level and on mental level. And so when you have that blissfulness, that comes through the flexibility and the lightness of body and mind, and that is when you actually achieve karma abiding or shamatha. So before that, even when you are able to concentrate on objects effortlessly, without the 2 faults, even for a long time, still you have not achieved the real karma abiding shamatha. You are still on the 9th stage. And you are on the 9th stage, you have still not achieved that. But after that, then it induces that kind of flexibility, serviceable flexibility and lightness. And that induces that kind of blissfulness. And that's when you actually achieve that. And so that's the way it's saying. Knowing this, yogi who are proficient have devoted themselves and continue to the single point of concentration, which overcome any means of mental wandering. That is one of the obstacles. I, the yogi, that have practiced just that, you who seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in that way. So to practice of the karma abiding, then the practice of the 9 stages of meditation practice by applying the 6 forces of power and 4 mental engagement. So that is that, and also in another matter text it explains about overcoming the 5 faults by applying the 8 antidotes. and through that then you achieve the karma abidings. And so basically to be able to achieve that single point of concentrations, there is two obstacles that we need to overcome. One obstacle is excitement and wandering of your mind. So when you have excitement, wandering, or distraction of your mind, then you are unable to keep your mind stable on the objects. There's no stability. And then even when you have that stability, but if your mind is falling under kind of dullness or laxity, then there is no clarity. Even though there is stability, there is no clarity. That is another obstacles. And in terms of that most subtle laxity, then there is still clarity, but there is no intensity. So there are three qualities that you need: steadiness, clarity, and intensity to the objects. And so by applying different antidotes that are required to overcome different obstacles. So then next is the wisdom. Again, same benefit and how to practice. 20. The profound wisdom is the eye with which to behold profound emptiness. And so, it's that the wisdom is the eye which realize and understand the profound emptiness, and path by which to uproot the fundamental ignorance, the source of cyclic existence. And it is only that profound wisdom that can cut the very root of the very root of the ignorance. And so without that, even if we have bodhicitta, and even if we have all other 5 practice of paramita or perfection, if you don't have that wisdom, then we can never free ourselves from the samsara. And so therefore, in Shantideva's also way of life, and he says, the wisdom among 6 perfection, wisdom is like the person with the eye, and the 5 others are like the blind persons. So the person who has the eye would lead the others, because they are blind, they cannot follow. So the wisdom with the eye will lead the others towards achieving the liberations. Because without that wisdom, they cannot reach. Even if you have all these 5 other practices, still you cannot reach. You cannot achieve liberation. Only when you have the support of that wisdom, and then with other all practice, then you can achieve liberation and a fully enlightened state, when you are also supported by bodhicitta mind. It is a treasure of generous praise in all scriptural pronouncement, and so it is. In all the scriptures, sutras, and commentaries, that it is said, is like as it is in the name of Heart Sutra, is the very essence and the heart of the Buddha's teachings. As I also is said in Shantideva Buddha's way of life, all the teachings, or directly, indirectly, lead to have the understanding of that profound wisdom. And is renowned as the supreme lamp that illuminates the darkness of closed-mindedness. So it is like the lamp, the light, which dispels the darkness of ignorance, of closed-mindedness. Knowing this, with the wise who have wished for liberation have advanced themselves along the path in every effort. I, the yogi, have practiced just that. You who also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in the same way. And so there are many different wisdom. Again, the wisdom realizing the conventional truth, and the wisdom realizing the ultimate truth. And here it's referring mainly for the wisdom realizing the ultimate truth or emptiness, and by seeing emptiness and dependent arising as the same, to be able to see emptiness as dependent arising and dependent arising as emptiness, to be able to see wisdom that sees when you analyzes the object within the basis of that object, it cannot found within any of those bases. Even though you cannot find the object within any of the bases of that object, at the same time it functions. So therefore you cannot say it does not exist, because it's function, and through that function it affects differently. And so therefore, while it is empty, at the same time it is able to function. So therefore it can't be non-existence. Therefore is interdependent, interconnected. And so understand the wisdom, understanding that even though it's empty, there's appearance. And through that appearance, it functions. And so, so while it's empty, it's also functioning. It's also dependent arising. While it is dependent arising, functioning, at the same time it's empty. Because if you try to find that, whatever that object, within the basis that we cannot really find it. And so therefore, to be able to see emptiness and interdependence in oneness, that profound wisdom. Then, not only we need to develop the meditative concentrations and the profound wisdom, but the need of union of both that together, union of the karma abiding and special insight. In a state of merely single-pointed meditative concentration, you do not have the insight. If you don't have it, that gives you ability to cut the root of existence. So, if you don't have the wisdom, if you have the just single-pointed meditative concentration, karma abiding, then you will not be able to cut the very root of cyclic existence of samsara. On the other hand, moreover, devoid of the path of karma abiding, wisdom by itself cannot turn back the delusions. And so even if you have the wisdom realizing the emptiness, but if you don't have the support of karma abiding, then again it is not so strong, not steady. And because it is not strong and steady, then you cannot cut the very root of delusion. It's like you have the right, you have the right saw, saw to cut the wood, saws, but it is like not straight, so you can't really cut it. You have to be very steady. Do you get it? At one place, with a very steady hand, you have to cut it. And the same way that with that wisdom sword, you will not be able to cut it if you don't have that the steadiness of that karma abiding. And no matter how much you analyze them, you will not be able to do that. Therefore, on the horse of unwavering karma abiding, the master have mounted discriminating wisdom that is totally decisive about how things exist, or the wisdom penetrating depth of the ultimate mode of things. Then the sharper weapon or middle path reasoning, devoid of extremes. Two extremes. They are use wide-ranging discriminating wisdom to analyze properly and destroy the all underlying support for this cognition aim at grasping for the two extremes. in this way, one extreme that non-existent, another extreme grasping as truly existence. In this way, they have expanded their intelligence that has realized emptiness. I, the yogi, have practiced just that. You who also seek the liberation, please cultivate yourself in the same way. So that is the reason to cultivate both karma abiding and wisdom. Without both of them, then and then once you have achieved single-pointed concentration to accustom yourself to single-pointedness of mind, your exam then of individual phenomena such as self and your aggregates such as your mind, your body and others, with proper analysis of the wisdom or ultimate analysis. There are many different analyses, and so by using the ultimate analysis, should itself enhance your single-minded concentration, settle extremely firmly, without any wavering, on the actual way in which things exist. So normally, when you are trying to develop a single-pointed concentrations, if you analyze, it becomes obstacles. Okay? Because when you're trying to develop single-point concentration, you just keep your mind focused on that object and you don't analyze anything, otherwise that becomes a distraction. So that becomes obstacle for cultivating of karma abiding. But once you have already achieved through the practice karma abiding, single-pointed concentrations, or shamatha, then on the basis of that, when you use to analyze the ultimate nature of yourself, mind, and others, then that kind of analysis at that point does not become an obstacle for your single-pointed concentration. It only increases your single-pointed concentrations. And so that is what it is saying here. Unlike like the other time, once you have developed karma abiding, on the basis of that karma abiding, when you analyze and reason and with the ultimate analysis through the wisdom, not only does not unwaver and it does not become obstacle, but it only enhances even that single-pointed concentration, even more that analysis, and that is the beauty of that. So it enhances each others in that way. Where is that? Without seeing this, the jealous, how do you spell? Zealous have marveled at the attainment of union of karma abiding and penetrative insight. Is there need to mention that you should pray to attain it as well? I, the yogi, have practiced just that. You who also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in the same way. So then, how to practice the union of the of that? Having achieved such union, you should meditate on a space like emptiness while completely observe in your meditative sessions. So when you are in meditative sessions, then you try to meditate on a space like emptiness, and so trying to analyze with the ultimate analysis and trying to find the self within your five aggregates, which is the basis of the self, or any object within the basis of that. And when you analyze this with that kind of ultimate analysis, and when you are unable to find within that basis, then it leads to a sense of totally empty of that object and totally empty spacious, just like empty space, and then try to remain in that um, in that state as much as you can. And so that is that. And then on illusion like emptiness, when you subsequently arise, and then when you come out of that meditative meditative equipoise or concentrations, and then when you engage in the everyday world, then you see, you hear, you smell, you taste, you touch, all these different objects that you encounter, that we see them, reminding ourselves, say, oh, even though they appear to us as inherent and truly, but it is not like that. They are just like the way things appear to us, the way things really exist are different. So reminding ourselves they are just like an illusion, and that is training to see like an illusion, that everything that we engage into, and in that way, then that meditations of seeing everything like illusion help next time for our meditation on space like emptiness, and that space like emptiness during the meditation help us to have that illusion like emptiness. By doing this, you will, through your union of method and awareness, become praised as someone perfecting both self-contact, realizing this with those great good fortune to have attained enlightenment have made it their custom never to contend with merely partial part. The partial part, just the wisdom or just the method, but encompassing the all, both wisdom and method. I, the yogi, have practiced just that, and you who also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in this way. So up to here, then it is the path of the sutra, and then the next one is the path of the Vajrayana Tantra. So then renunciations and enlightened motive of the bodhicitta mind and correct view of emptiness are necessary in common for the achieving supreme path through either of the two Mahayana vehicles, the practicing the cause, which is the Prasnaparamita path, or for enlightenment, or simulating now the result, the Vajrayana path. Therefore, so in order our practice of Vajrayana or tantric practice to be very effective, as it is explained, you need to have good foundations of the common path, the three principal aspects of path: renunciation, bodhicitta mind, and wisdom realizing emptiness. If you have those as a foundation, then the other practices become effective. If you don't have that, then even if you practice Vajrayana practice, it doesn't become as effective as it says, because you don't have good foundation. So that is why those good foundations, common foundation, is so important. We cannot ignore that. Therefore, once you have properly developed like this three principal path, as I mentioned before, you should rely on a skillful captain or fully qualified tantric master as your protector. And so from that, then you try to receive the initiations. So that with the initiations, then it gives you permissions and the blessing to study and practice the tantric path. So, and then set out in later spiritual vehicle or tantric vehicle across the vast ocean of 4 classes of tantra. So, kriya tantra, charya tantra, yoga tantra, mahana yoga tantra. So, so those 3 of the 4 classes of tantra. And those who have done so and devoted themselves to this and their guideline instructions have made their attainment. And so then, especially in highest yoga tantra, then by practicing the generation stage and completion stage, then you achieve the fully enlightened state. So when you do that, and those who have done so and devote themselves to do that, his or her guidance, instruction, and attainment as human body with liberated endowment fully meaningful, then our life becomes meaningful purpose by attaining enlightenment that very life. I, the yogi, have practiced just that. You who also show liberation, please cultivate yourself in this way. And so then the final. In order to accustom, so the reason why Lama Tsongkhapa composed this text is saying, being a very humble and humility, he said, in order to accustom this to my own mind, he said that mainly I compose it in order to accustom my own mind and to improve my own practice in that. But he said also it is possible to benefit others, so with the aim to benefit others as well. We have good fortune to meet a true guru and able to practice that what he or she teach. I have explained here in easily understandable word, in a short word, the complete path from the beginning to the very end, path that pleased the Buddhas. I pray that, so then dedicating the merit of composing this text through the, so I pray that merit from this may cause all sentient beings be never be separated from this pure and excellent path of Dhambrim, or the stages of the path. So that is the dedication. And I, yogi, have practiced just that. You who also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in the same way. So, it seems at the end, it seems like marathon.
You finished.
Just that easy. Just that easy.
Yeah. I think this is the first time I finished something here.
Us too.
I think both in the past, both which I think I didn't finish both of them. Well, because there are also a lot of many lines. So then, okay, thank you very much, and I hope you got something, and that I hope your time is not wasted, and if you got anything find it beneficial, then the main point is to trying to apply in our everyday life. Even is bits of that, even a little bit of that, that is the important. The point of us coming here together and to study and learn and to discuss is to get inspired and also to learn something. So the purpose of learning is that so we can implement, integrate, and otherwise then it doesn't serve much. It doesn't serve great purpose if we don't really implement and apply, and so that is the main purpose of that. And so then we dedicate, due to all the virtues that oneself and others have created, may the Dharma flourish in all 10 directions. May His Holy Dalai Lama, Kyari Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all the gurus, holy beings have long healthy life. May all their wishes and deeds, noble deeds, activity be fulfilled. And may we never be separated from them in this life, in future, in part or in future, all future lives until we achieve enlightenment. And may all sentient beings have healthy and long life, prosperity, successful life, happy and meaningful life. And may each and every sentient beings be able to actualize and fully develop the whole lumbering path in their mind stream, especially the bodhicitta mind and wisdom realizing emptiness. And those who have already actualized, not to diminish but increase more and more. Due to the time of the virtues or merit that we have created, which empty from its own side, may I, which empty from its own side, achieve fully enlightened state which empty from its own side, for the highest and greatest benefit of all sentient beings which empty from its own side. Yevadi nyoto ta Lama Tsongkhapa do ne do wa chi kyang ma le pa te sa la hui ba sho chang cho sem cho rin po che ma ke pa na ke kyu che ke wa nyam ba me pa yang kong le kong tu pe wa sho Kari rawe korwe shingang de pendang de wa ma lu chung we ne che le sen wa ten ten ja zo e sha pe se te pa tu ten gyo che to zo chang shin chang wen ja le ten ten jong pe we kun su to po zi cho son ko we le ma tu tu pa da so do je sha pe Thank you, thank you.